everyone. Welcome back to Unraveling Politics, a weekly political analysis show where I discuss the week in politics that was and I look ahead to the future. So we are now in the familiar pattern. We faced this about 2 years ago as we reached the end of the last presidential administration, and that is there isn't very much on the congressional and legislative agenda. Things become very personal and more drama-based between different personalities, and that's kind of where we are as we face the midterm elections in the last few months, and we still have about 6 months to go. For example, Joe Biden's first 2 years started out this way, and toward the end it became really personal. And at the end of Joe Biden's term, the 118th Congress, that was the one that just ended, it was really more conflict-driven. So in that spirit, we don't really have much else to talk about in terms of policy. Instead, we have a few things in the wider political sphere. So I'll start with Congress, with now former Representative Sherfilis McCormick. I talked about her last week. She has resigned her seat, and that is one less Democratic vote. She was a scandal-ridden congressperson. She's not the only one to resign, and she's the third to resign, and now there's only one left, and that is Corey Mills of Florida. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't think he will be expelled from Congress, at least not before the midterm elections, mostly because, unlike the other lady, the House Ethics Committee has not made a ruling yet, and it won't for quite some time, because they just opened an investigation a few months ago. And if you aren't in the know, here are some of the things that he is accused of. Just some of those things include exaggerating his military record by falsely claiming to have been an Army Ranger, an Army sniper, a special force qualified mechanic, and none of those are supported by records in the Army. He said he earned a Bronze Star through stolen valor and false claims about saving his comrades in Iraq. Now, as far as I'm aware, none of that is illegal. It's all bad things, but none of it is illegal. However, what is illegal is punching someone in the face in 2023 when he went to Ireland, and this was while he was a sitting member of Congress, threatening to send sexually explicit photos of an ex-girlfriend and to make them public, and killing her future partners. And then in October 2025, had a Florida judge place a restraining order on him after concluding that he subjected his ex-girlfriend to dating violence via cyber stalking. So that is a problem. He claims he's never been charged for it, but the judge still placed a restraining order, and he wouldn't do that if it didn't have any merit. So as I said, I don't think he's going anywhere. Republican leadership has encouraged its members not to vote for an expulsion. There might still be a vote for expulsion, but because Representative Nancy Mace, who is running for governor of South Carolina, she has filed a motion. It might not make it to the floor. If it does, I imagine Democrats will vote for it, but most Republicans will not, and therefore it will fail. And a motion of censure has been referred to the House Ethics Committee. It is a standard procedure. A censure is basically just a you did a bad thing. The resistance that Eric Swalwell, Tony Gonzalez, and Corey Mills has put up has been quite horrifying. For example, if you follow politics for a while, you might remember Katie Hill of California. She slept with one of her staffers, and which was not allowed. It wasn't illegal, but it was not allowed. And I'll quickly run you through the timeline on that. On October 18, 2019, a conservative blog released the information that she had an extramarital affair with someone. She denied the allegations. October 23rd, 5 days later, she admitted to it and revealed that it was a staffer. Then there were nude photos leaked of Representative Hill. Then the House Ethics Committee opened up an investigation because, once again, sleeping with your staff is not allowed. That was put in during the Me Too movement. She said that she would comply. And then 4 days later, on October 27th, she announced her resignation from Congress. So in less than 10 days, she was gone, compared to the men who have taken months to resign. And at the time, she blamed a double standard and misogynistic culture in D.C., saying that there were men accused of sexual violence in the Supreme Court, Congress, and the White House. And putting politics aside, there is a stark contrast between the two, and I think we forget about what Katie Hill did was wrong. Definitely not as bad as Eric Swalwell and Tony Gonzalez, and now Corey Mills. Turning to the administration, another member has resigned their seats, so we had, or been fired. We had Pam Bondi, and we had somebody else, I forget who it is. I guess, I don't even remember anymore. And now we have Lori Chavez DeRaumer. She has resigned her seat. She was accused of having an affair with a subordinate and drinking on the job. We also have Kash Patel, who hasn't resigned, but I'm sure wish he would. A story came out in The Atlantic about 10 days ago about his alleged frequent drinking and absences from the Bureau. Rumor has it they're already looking for his replacement, and he's on borrowed time. He said it is false and is suing the magazine for $250 million. although I usually say when the news makes allegations like this, in my experience, they are true. There's a high standard of proof for public officials, including Kash Patel. If the media did this for a private individual, then that would be a little bit different. But Kash Patel is a public official. And Pete Hegseth, I think, will eventually fall on his sword or be fired, more likely fired. And if the Iran war goes badly, I expect him to be gone. And Pete Hegseth was only confirmed 50-50s with Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Mitch McConnell voting against it, siding with the Democrats. So he was approved by the narrowest of margins, and he had allegations of sexual misconduct, excessive drinking, and financial mismanagement. So Hakeem Jeffries, who will almost certainly be the Speaker of the House in about 8 to 9 months, has vowed to open investigations into Hegseth and Patel. For now, there's not much that they can do because they don't control committees, and I imagine they will be investigating pretty much everybody in the administration, from Trump himself to RFK Jr. to whoever the new Attorney General will be, assuming a new one is named. Turning to the media, and I thought this was quite shocking, Tucker Carlson, the former Fox News host, on a podcast with his brother Buckley, said he regretted helping Trump get elected, and this I think is huge. There has been a falling out over the last few months, most particularly with the war in Iran, which he called absolutely disgusting and evil. He also said, "You and I," referring to him and his brother, and everyone else who supported him, you wrote speeches for him, and I campaigned for him. I mean, we are implicated in this for sure. So that is surprising. Most tellingly, he said, "So I do think it's like a moment to wrestle with our own consciousness. You know, we'll be tormented by it for a long time. I will be. I want to say I'm sorry for misleading people. This was not intentional, and that's all I'll say." And then lastly, he said the only people he has been loyal to are the neocons and his donors, and also noting that clearly there were signs of low character, and we knew that. And I was quite shocked by this. I'm not floating around right-wing media very much, so I don't really pay attention to this kind of thing. I do have an episode in the works about what kind of media I go to for sources and how to spot bias, but I will come to this later. This was really a shock for me. And if you want to know how I voted in the last election, I recommend you check out my book, which is linked in the description. One day I'll release it, but not today. And I will just say this, many people in the Republican Party 10 years ago, including JD Vance, said that Trump was a bad person, a racist, whatever. And I wonder if in a few years these same people are going to end up where it all began, and it's going to come back to a full circle. Except now they will be revealed as frauds because they went along with it for almost 15 years for political reasons. And next we have the man who will almost certainly be the next Fed chair. The DOJ has dropped the investigation into Jerome Powell. The investigation was into the renovation of the Federal Reserve HQ building, and Republican Senator Tom Tillis said that he was going to block the new federal chair's nomination until the investigation was dropped, and now it has been dropped. So it seems that Warsh will be confirmed and that the Powell era at the Fed will be almost over. It will end on May 15th, I believe. And I've already talked about Warsh in the previous episodes, and I do have some potential concerns about him. I don't think he's the worst pick, but I do have some concerns. So go back and find that episode. I believe it was about a month and a half ago. And lastly, we're going to end with a look to the future and the 2028 presidential election. And I will definitely talk about this again after the midterms, but for now, there's one focus that I want to have on one particular man, and that is Vice President JD Vance. He is considered MAGA's heir apparent ever since Trump won a year and a half ago, and I will just say that I'm starting to think he might not run in 2028. It's still early, and there's still a very long way to go, but this administration now has a 39% approval rating, and it's becoming worse and worse by the month, and I don't think there is much to run on for him. JD Vance definitely has an ego, not as much as Trump, but that's a low bar. And to be fair to him, you do have to have an ego to be in politics. So my question is, what has he accomplished in this administration? He has the reverse Midas touch, where everything he touches and everywhere he goes, something goes wrong. He killed the Pope. He campaigned for Viktor Orban in Hungary, and Orban was defeated in a landslide. He hasn't gotten a deal with Iran, and it's only getting worse. And this administration has very few accomplishments. And you might wonder, what have they accomplished? The only two things I would give them for were bringing down gas prices. Or actually, there's three things. Bringing down gas prices, stopping the Biden illegal immigrant surge, and capturing Maduro. For the bringing gas prices down, that has been completely undone because of the war in Iran, and it's debatable how much of an impact the administration ever had to begin with. And then for capturing Maduro, doesn't really, I think that was great, but it doesn't really change much in day to day. It doesn't make things cheaper or more expensive, and it didn't really change much for average Venezuelans either. And then the illegal immigrant surge, that I think is the stopping of it is a big achievement, and the administration doesn't get enough credit for. But most swing voters have been repulsed by it, so they can't run on that either. And it's not like, as I said, the administration's foreign policy has been successful. So I ask once again, what does JD Vance have to run on? If he does run, or he's going to be the Kamala of 2028, he will be asked why did he support the president on these things, if he's going to create distance between himself and the president, and if he promises to do anything differently, he will be asked why he hasn't done it already. So I'll say this right now, I will not be supporting JD Vance in the next presidential election. I think there was a time that I may have found a way, but he will not have my support. I think Ron DeSantis would be great. Marco Rubio could be fine as well. I don't really see anyone else I could throw my support behind, and I think if Vance runs, Marco Rubio wouldn't. Ron DeSantis might. It's too early to say. I think Nikki Haley would, but the thing is with Nikki Haley is we basically have Nikki Haley as president already. A Nikki Haley presidency would be what we have right now. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of clamor for her to run. The good news for Vance is he does still have a large enough lead in the polls that he would sweep the nomination. His closest rival is Donald Trump Jr. and Marco Rubio. They're at like 10%, and JD Vance is around 40 to 50 to 60% even. So I don't really think Trump Jr. is going to go anywhere, and I don't think Marco Rubio is going to run. If you go back to my July 2024 episode about Trump's running mate, I said I thought it was going to be Marco Rubio, and I think Marco Rubio would have been a better choice, and in hindsight, it would have made it harder for Marco Rubio to run in 2028. I think he's got a hard chance. It's going to be hard either way, but it would have been worse if he did become vice president. So that is all for now. Sorry, my voice is still not up to par. Hopefully next week we'll have a video and it will be a little bit better. So please let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.